Humiliated my know-it-all cousin, who lives with her parents at 36, by calling her an unemployed loser during my PhD celebration. I'm a 30-year-old guy, and I recently earned my PhD from a very prestigious university outside my home country. To be honest, getting there was unbelievably tough for me because of a learning disability. There were so many nights when I'd be left in tears because my mind just wouldn't grasp a chapter, or I'd get stuck on an assignment, feeling hopeless and ready to give up. But somehow, I kept pushing through. So, actually finishing the PhD felt like the ultimate relief, like I had finally conquered something I once thought was impossible. Returning home was supposed to be a celebration. My dad was absolutely thrilled and insisted on throwing a big dinner at home, inviting the whole extended family to honor my achievement. He was bursting with pride, probably even more than I was. I really was looking forward to seeing everyone. Except for my cousin. Let's call her Jane for the sake of this story. Jane is 36, currently unemployed, and has been living at home with her parents for a while. Jane always manages to be the center of attention. No matter the occasion, she's always giving unwanted advice or inserting herself in every conversation. My mom and her parents constantly defend her, showering her with endless patience and excuses for her behavior, claiming she's gifted and that she needs space to achieve her potential. Over the years, this coddling has made things so much worse. My dad and I have both pleaded with my mom to stop getting involved when it comes to Jane, but she's unwavering. In my culture, you're expected to tolerate family, no matter how much they irritate you. No one really calls Jane out, because the fallout wouldn't be worth it. That grin it and bear it attitude has always bugged me, and I honestly think it's part of why my dad nudged me to think about settling abroad in the first place. When the day of the dinner arrived, Jane lived up to her reputation. She was relentless, dominating conversations, cutting people off, and spinning outlandish tales about getting job offers at Google or how she planned to travel across Europe to follow her dreams in music and art. It was especially infuriating when she kept interrupting me as I tried to explain my PhD research to family members who were genuinely interested. She couldn't stand anyone else getting the spotlight. Then Jane decided it was finally her turn to give me her valuable advice about my next steps in life. My mom and aunt practically trapped me in a corner so I couldn't escape, insisting it was important her being the good older sister by guiding me. I was grateful my dad stayed close in case things got out of hand. So Jane went off, launching into a speech about what she supposedly did after high school to become a success. My mom, aunt, and uncle all nodded along like they were hearing wisdom from Socrates, while my dad and most of the family just sat there, clearly fed up. I tried to tune her out, not wanting to engage, but she noticed and got instantly annoyed. Suddenly, she snapped her fingers right in front of my eyes and snapped, "I'm giving you such good advice, you should pay attention so you can do well like me." For years, I would have just apologized or made some excuse, but this time I was done. I looked her in the eye and said, "Is it good advice to end up an unemployed loser who lives with her parents at 36 like you?" Then, no thanks. The silence in the room was deafening. For a moment, no one moved. Then, Jane burst into tears and ran out. My aunt and uncle shot daggers at me with their eyes before chasing after her. After that, the dinner pretty much shattered. Everyone started making excuses to leave early. My mom exploded, demanding I apologize, but my dad had my back and argued that maybe Jane could actually learn something from me instead of treating me like a kid. The confrontation just spiraled out of control, and ever since, things at home have been beyond tense. My aunt and uncle sent me some pretty nasty messages, but I ignored them. My mom kept going on about Jane's broken heart, while other family members split into camps. Some said they understood where I was coming from but thought I shouldn't have said it so openly, while others accused me of becoming arrogant and told me to apologize. Now, I'm completely conflicted. Was I too harsh? Did I let years of pent-up frustration get the better of me? The tension with my family is at an all-time high, and I can't shake the feeling that I could have handled things better, even if Jane probably needed to hear the truth. With her parents or my mom by calling her out. For some reason, my mom has always been weirdly protective of Jane, which has become a long-standing point of tension with my dad. He thinks my aunt emotionally manipulated her into always defending Jane. Honestly, maybe he's right, although until recently, that was just our assumption. Now, here's what's happened. Jane has been having her meltdown on social media, calling me arrogant and claiming I have no concept of respect. The irony hasn't escaped me for a second. Luckily, she faced serious backlash for broadcasting our family drama online, so she eventually deleted her posts. But her parents haven't let up, their texts keep rolling in. I probably shouldn't be, but I find reading them pretty entertaining at this point. After stewing on all of this, I decided it was time to confront my mom. She gets obsessive about cleaning whenever she's upset, so I waited until she was done. She'd be tired, less able to deflect or dodge the conversation. She wasn't in any mood to talk, but I didn't give her the chance to escape. I told her, straight up, exactly how I felt about Jane's behavior and made it clear that her taking Jane's side felt like a betrayal. I confessed that I always thought my mom would have my back, and realizing she didn't was devastating. I'll admit, it was a little manipulative, but I was desperate for her to understand. She tried to flip the whole thing on me, insisting I was being disrespectful and that it was her job to correct me when I was wrong. She didn't expect it when I shot back, "If you care so much about Jane, why don't you ever call her out?" That left her speechless. She just walked away and ignored me the rest of the night. This morning, I woke up to her coming into my room early. She apologized, actually saying she should have realized how deeply this was affecting me. I'm sure some people would say I should have rejected her apology or set some boundaries, but she's my mom. I could never hate her, not for a second. She has her flaws, especially in this blind spot for Jane, but she's always been a good mother to me. I forgave her instantly. She broke down crying, hugged me, and told me how proud she was and how sorry she was for not showing it. I suspect my dad might have spoken to her last night and gotten through in a way I couldn't. I decided to take things further. I pushed her on why she's always so staunchly defensive of Jane, who constantly makes up stories and has nothing going for her. She tried to run through the usual defenses, but this time I stood firm, telling her I'm tired of the charade and just want to be treated like an adult. Finally, she admitted that she knows Jane is in no position to dole out career advice or anything else, and it's inappropriate. But from her perspective, Jane's someone to be pitied. We're supposed to show compassion by tolerating her, just so she doesn't feel worse about herself. I pointed out that all the compassion really did was enable Jane and make her worse, but of course, suddenly it wasn't her place to correct Jane. I was fed up with this endless loop, so I told her point blank, I won't ever apologize to Jane, and the next time she tries her condescending routine, I'm not holding back. My mom seemed emotionally drained at that point. She just accepted it. I can only hope the message finally got through and she'll stop bringing up Jane. Now, I'm lying in bed, still turning everything over in my mind. At this stage, it feels like everyone in the family is sick of Jane's behavior. I'm thinking of talking to my dad about whether we could ask the rest of the family to start excluding Jane and her parents from future events. I have no idea how to go about making that happen, and I seriously doubt everyone will agree, but maybe if we get the ball rolling, others will consider it. It sucks not being able to know things will work out, but at this point, all I can do is hope for the best. Update 2. This is actually so insane I don't even know what to make of it. It feels like I'm living in a bad sitcom right now, and I can't believe this is actually my life. To give some context, not long ago I called out my entitled cousin for trying to give me career advice. That sparked an explosion. She had a full-blown meltdown, and my parents ended up in a heated fight over it. Things have been icy ever since, which wasn't easy to live with, but at least my mom seems to have finally gotten the message. Relief washed over me when she and my dad started talking again. The tension was absolutely killing me. All I really wanted was just one peaceful month at home before starting my new job, but with the latest events, that hope is gone. Last night, out of nowhere, my mom gets a phone call from my aunt. I could hear my aunt on the other end, absolutely hysterical, bawling her eyes out and saying they'd lost everything. My mom spent nearly 30 minutes listening as my aunt wept and vented, but eventually it was all too much. She just ended the call abruptly, drained. She wandered into the living room and just sat there, staring into nothing, almost catatonic. After about 10 minutes of this silent shock, she finally started explaining to us what happened, and honestly, my mind can't process it. So, get this, Jane, my cousin, the very one I called out, decided her grand way to get back at me was to go and get a PhD herself. As if the universe owed her one for being so entitled. No doubt she assumes she'll just breeze through it and be handed the degree on a silver platter. And of course, her parents, being the enablers they always are, jumped at the idea without a second thought. The details of what happened next are a little fuzzy, but from what we managed to piece together, apparently someone approached them promising that they could get Jane into a PhD program at Harvard. That alone should have been a red flag a mile wide, but nope, they dove headfirst into the sketchy proposal. Naturally, the so-called contact demanded a huge sum, most of their life savings, and, in a haze of wishful thinking and ego, they handed it over. I can practically see Jane's smug face, convinced that she'd soon be the best PhD in the family, finally one-upping me. I wish I could say I'm surprised, but this pathetic competition is just sad at this point. Jane has no self-awareness at all. I'm not even sure who's worse, her, for dreaming up this petty rivalry, or her parents, for encouraging it so blindly. Anyway, as soon as they paid up, the obvious scammer blocked them everywhere and disappeared with their money. I'm just baffled. Did it never even cross their minds that this was too good to be true? Scams like this are so common in my home country that everyone's on guard, at least anyone with an ounce of sense. Apparently, expecting even that minimum level of common sense was asking too much from that family of narcissists. Now I'm almost certain they'll start begging the rest of the family for money, and I can already see my mom bringing up the issue sooner or later. More drama. More chaos. And you can bet I'll get dragged into the mess, as always. I'm so incredibly exhausted by all of it. At this point, I'm seriously considering just telling my parents to visit me at my workplace from now on. Yes, there's nostalgia in coming home, but is it really worth the headache of dealing with all this relentless drama and all the nosiness and judgment that follows? I'm not so sure anymore. If any family member I actually like wants to visit, I'd happily pay for their travel and stay, just so I can avoid every ounce of this craziness. But otherwise, I'm done. I'm at the end of my rope. Right now, my head is throbbing from just thinking about their idiocy, so I'm going to sleep and hope I can leave it behind at least for tonight. Update 3. I barely slept and still woke up to pounding on our front gate like the house was on fire. I peeked out the window and there they were, my aunt, uncle, and Jane with a plastic folder clutched like it was a newborn and not, the ruins of their common sense. My dad opened the gate before my mom could and told them to keep their voices down. Of course they didn't. They didn't bother with hello. My aunt launched into a monologue about family and only you can help us fix this. She meant me. Apparently, because I did a PhD, I now have the magical power to resurrect Harvard admissions, unscam their bank account, and probably cure seasonal allergies while I'm at it. Then Jane took out the folder and, with a straight face, pulled out a Harvard conditional admission letter with her name on it. It was like watching a car crash in slow motion. The logo was slightly stretched. The Graduate School of Arts and Science was singular. The signature looked like it had been traced by a child learning cursive for the first time. And my personal favorite, the email address at the bottom, was a Gmail. I didn't even have to say anything. My dad actually laughed. Out loud. Jane flushed and said, "This is real, our contact sent it," like that settled it. I told them, quietly, that they'd been scammed twice, first for the money, and now to save face. Jane bristled, shoved the paper at me, and said I was jealous and trying to keep her down. I handed it back and told her to spell the name of the school she was admitted to. She stared at it for a full 5 seconds and said, "You know what I mean." My mom, who would normally jump in to rescue her, stayed silent. She looked tired and older than yesterday. Then came the actual reason they'd shown up: they wanted money. Not a loan help. They insisted they couldn't go to the police without proof and needed cash immediately to placate the contact, who had, miraculously, reappeared and promised to unblock the file if they sent a smaller second installment. I felt my brain detach from my skull for a second. My dad told them no, right there in the living room. No savings, no gold, no temporary anything. My aunt's eye flew to my mom like a missile, but my mom didn't move. She said, calm and clear, "We're not funding this." My aunt looked like someone slapped her. I thought that would be the end of it, but then my phone buzzed. It was an email forwarded by my former advisor from abroad. The subject line, "Endorsement request for Harvard application urgent." The email was from Jane. She had written to my advisor pretending we were jointly applying for something and attached a Word document using my CV as a template down to the same bullet points, except where she'd replaced my publications with random blog posts and added leadership in high school choir like it was a grant. She also attached a cropped picture of my diploma that she must have stolen from the family WhatsApp last year. My advisor's note was short: "Is this legitimate? Wanted to check with you before I respond." I just stared at her. She couldn't meet my eyes. She muttered, "It's just a template." I told her impersonating me to my mentor is not a template, it's fraud. My uncle tried to spin it into youthful enthusiasm while asking again, very casually, when we could transfer some money because the bank is being slow. My dad asked them to leave. They did. So my dad did something I didn't expect. He pulled out a printed statement and told my aunt that any money she thought my mother could quietly sneak to her like before wouldn't happen. He had already moved their joint emergency funds into a fixed account this morning. My aunt froze. My mom didn't even look embarrassed, just relieved. I knew. I can't tell if I'm more angry that she gave them anything in the past or more grateful that she didn't try again. We ended up at the cybercrime unit after lunch anyway, because if there was even a microscopic chance to claw back anything, it was through official channels. My dad insisted we go together so nobody could twist what was said. The officer listened, expressionless, as Jane explained how Harvard admissions works via WhatsApp and priority payment queues. He asked her to write it all down. Then he turned to my uncle and asked which bank, which account, and whether he had verified any of it beyond a man from Boston said so. My uncle tried to argue it was globalization. The officer shut him down with a single sentence: globalization doesn't mean you stop reading. They took copies of everything: the fake letter, the bank slips, the phone numbers, and told them to freeze the receiving account formally through the bank, which should have been step one. Jane kept glancing at me like I was about to flip some secret switch that would undo all of this. The officer finally looked at Jane and said, "Madam, Harvard is not a courier service. It does not deliver degrees to your door." While we were still at the station, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. A cousin from my dad's side sent me screenshots from Facebook. Jane had already posted her acceptance letter last night with some nauseating caption about discipline and manifesting and tagged Harvard. The post had exploded, half congratulating, half questioning. Someone from our city who actually goes there commented, "This is not real, please take this down before it gets worse." Then an acquaintance of hers piled on with, "Why are you lying?" and then there were 10 more. By the time we got home, she had deleted the post, but not before people saved it. My aunt accused me of engineering the humiliation. I told her I didn't even know she had posted it until 5 minutes ago. Back at our place, my mom closed the door, turned the key, and told me to sit. She apologized for ever having given them money, apparently small amounts over the years that she thought were harmless, just to keep peace. My dad didn't say "I told you so." He just put his hand on her shoulder. I told them both I was putting a credit freeze on anything I could freeze, pulling my diploma photo offline, and asking the group admin to take down my graduation pictures from the family chat. My mom nodded like a student being read a lesson. As for Jane and her parents, they sent a mass message to the family group tonight, something ridiculous about falling into the trap of enemies and false friends who sabotaged our path and asking for prayers. No outright request for money yet. I expect that's coming after everyone has had time to process. My dad has already drafted a single response he plans to copy and paste to anyone who texts us: "We are not participating in bailouts, speak to the police and the bank." There's one last thing that cemented my decision. An hour ago, my advisor replied again and said he had reported Jane's email to the universities as a phishing attempt and would not be corresponding with her further. He was kind but firm. He told me to protect my documents and congratulated me again on my new job. Reading that, I felt something loosen in my chest I didn't know I was holding. I booked an earlier flight. I'll help my parents file whatever the bank needs tomorrow morning, and then I'm done. If anyone wants to see me, they can come where I am. I'm not wasting one more week of my life playing bouncer at the gate of someone else's delusion. Update 4. I woke up ready to sign whatever the bank shoved in front of us and get on a plane. No speeches, no second chances, just paperwork and distance. We were at the branch when they unlocked the doors. The manager looked like he'd been sleeping under his desk and still managed to be more alert than my aunt has been for 36 years. He pulled the transfer logs, circled the receiving account, and said the thing I already knew: most of the money had been split and moved within minutes. They flagged the remaining trickle, filed the freeze request, and gave us a case number. It felt like getting a Band-Aid after a building collapse. The cybercrime officer from yesterday texted while we were still at a counter. "Keep them talking. Ask for another account." My dad put the phone in front of my uncle and told him to type. The contact replied almost instantly with a cheerful "Yes, brother," and a new payment method, some e-wallet ID that looked like a password someone makes when they're mad. The officer called back and told us not to send a single cent. He just wanted the trail. 2 minutes later he messaged, "That wallet is registered to a Travel Solutions in our city. Education consultancy." Of course it is. We stopped by the address on the way home, my dad and I, not as vigilantes, just to see if the sign even existed. It did. A sad little office above a mechanic's shop with a sun-faded poster of Harvard plastered crooked in the window. The shutter was halfway down and a boy who looked barely 18 was pretending to arrange prospectuses that said "Guaranteed Admit USA/UK/Canada." He wouldn't look at us. My dad took a photo of the sign and sent it to the officer. He replied with a thumbs up and "Don't go in." We didn't. I made tea because my hands needed a job. My phone buzzed again, unknown number, American country code. A syrupy voice said he was calling from Harvard Graduate Recruitments, plural, and that he could prioritize Jane's onboarding if we could settle pending SEVIS. The script was so sloppy it was almost insulting. I put him on speaker. My dad whispered, "Don't play with him." I asked which department exactly. He said, "Your medicine." I said Harvard Medical School doesn't admit through GSAS and asked him what GSAS even stands for. Click. Before we could even savor that small, stupid victory, my grandmother summoned everyone to her house. Family meeting, no option. I didn't want to go. My dad said we'd stay 10 minutes and leave if the word loan was breathed. We walked in and half the clan was already there, sitting on the same plastic chairs they'd had since I was 8. My aunt started as soon as we stepped over the threshold about sabotage, about jealousy, about how I had contacted people abroad to humiliate Jane. My grandmother cut her off, and I have never loved that woman more. Enough, she said, voice flat. You were warned about these agents last year. You took money from your sister. You will not take more. The room went still. My aunt sputtered something about enemies. My grandmother didn't take her eyes off her and said, our emergency fund is for hospitals. Not this. It was the first time I've ever heard a boundary declared out loud in that house. They tried to pivot to me. My uncle waved that fake letter like it might grow a law degree midair if we watched long enough. He FaceTimed someone right there, some oily man in a too shiny suit who introduced himself as the liaison and set his camera so we could see a wall of framed certificates behind him. My dad asked one question, which faculty signed her letter? The man said, Director of Doctorates. I asked for a name. He mispronounced the current deans. That has hit twice. Then he dropped the call. We were leaving when Jane grabbed my sleeve in the hallway. She wasn't crying. Her face was hard and blotchy, like she'd rubbed it raw and then decided not to cry anyway. She whispered, I need you to write me a recommendation. Just one paragraph. I'll fill in the rest. They said if I have one from you, they'll push it. I told her to let go. She did, and please, she said, and her voice did crack then, Tiny, you don't understand, they are going to come to our house. I asked who. She said a name I actually recognize, not from any school, but from stories your parents tell you as a warning. Not a bank. Not a sanctioned lender. The room shrank a little around us. I told my dad. He didn't change expression, just said, we're leaving now. Back at our place, 2 men on a bike got along enough outside our gate to make my stomach tighten. They didn't say anything, just watched the house like it might confess. They drove off. 10 minutes later my uncle messaged my mother privately asking if she could just keep some gold safe for them until things calmed down. She showed my dad the screen. He called my uncle and told him to come pick up his problem from our doorstep, because if anyone showed up here asking about money, he would give them the officer's card and the case number, and that was all. Then he texted the family group again, go to the police, not our door. The police called in the afternoon. The e-wallet account had K. Travel Solutions registered to a man whose Facebook is a highlight reel of him cutting ribbons at visa seminars. They wanted Jane and my uncle to bring their phones and give statements again. My aunt tried to argue over loudspeaker that this was harassment. The officer was patient for exactly 4 words and then said, you came to us. We are doing our job. Something in my aunt's tone crumpled for the first time. They agreed to go tomorrow. Before I could pack, one more grenade rolled in. An email to my personal address from a local news site, the kind with a blue checkmark and a gossip column that ruins people all the time. They wanted a comment on the viral acceptance controversy and had attached, for my reference, screenshots of Jane's post in a doctored conversation where I supposedly admitted to using contacts to get her application blocked. The timestamps didn't even line up with when I was on a plane last year. I didn't reply. I forwarded it to the officer and then to my advisor. A minute later my advisor sent back 3 sentences. He was adding the university's legal counsel to the thread. He had already archived and reported everything under my name, and if I needed an official letter stating I had not recommended or co-applied with anyone, he would draft it tonight. I didn't realize how much I needed that until I saw it. My flight was moved up again. I threw clothes into a bag without folding anything. My mom kept fussing with zippers and then just stood there, holding the handle like it would disappear if she let go. At the airport, I checked my phone one last time before security. The city police page had posted a single photo, a metal shutter with K. Travel Solutions scrolled above it, and a caption about continuing action against fraudulent education agents, plus a very familiar wall of crooked Ivy League posters in the background. Comments turned off. No details. Just enough to make me exhale through my teeth for the first time in days. While they were calling my boarding zone, a last message popped up in the family group. From my aunt. We have made mistakes. We will cooperate with authorities. Please no one send any money. Do not engage with unknown numbers. No enemies, no sabotage. It read like someone else typed it for her. Maybe they did. I don't care. I turned my phone to airplane mode and watched the city blur under cloud. I don't know what's recoverable, if anything. I don't know if Jane understands that a degree is not a prop you order with express shipping. I do know my parents are finally done funding fantasies. If anyone needs me now, they can't write to my lawyer or meet me on neutral ground. I'm finished being the families that help, ATM, and crisis sank all in one human. My dad texted before takeoff, land safe. Door stays locked. That about covers it. Update 5. I landed to 3 things: a gray sky, a stale sandwich, and an email from my new company's security team flagged red. Subject line: third-party reference verification attempt. Someone had written to the general HR inbox from a Gmail calling themselves Harvard Graduate Recruitments plural again asking to verify ops standing given conflicts with his cousin's joint placement. They attached a PDF that was basically my CV run through a blender and re-exported with clip art crests. I forwarded it to legal and went to shower at the airport gym anyway, because bad grammar can ruin a day if you let it. By the time I reached my apartment, legal had replied with a tidy little paragraph thanking me for the heads up and telling me they blocked the sender and added a note to my file. We see this with high-profile grads, they said, like they were telling me about the weather coming in from the north. I didn't know whether to laugh or sit down and update my passwords again. My dad FaceTimed me from the kitchen while stirring something with far too much ginger. I could hear the sizzle and my mother telling him to stop hovering. He didn't bother with small talk. They picked up the shiny suit man, he said, at a cafe near the bus stand. They let the newspaper take photos of the posters coming down. He turned the phone to show me the TV in the corner silent footage of a wall with MIT, Harvard, Stanford all glued at drunken angles, a police hand peeling them off one by one like band-aids. Then he put it back on his face. The officer wants you to email a statement. Identity misuse. He said it like he was saying, wear a sweater, it's cold. I typed while he angled the camera to the pan for me like a cooking show. Halfway through my draft, my phone lit up again. Unknown number. Jane's voice no. I didn't hit play immediately. My dad watched me not hit it. Play it, he said, and then turned down the gas. Hi, she said, and my name, soft, like we were children and she'd just borrowed my pencil without asking. They took my phone. I'm using Moz. They said bring documents. I need. There was a pause and muffled adult voices in the background. I need you to tell your professor not to say anything for now. Or to say it was a misunderstanding. I didn't mean. Then quieter, rapid, please. They found messages. They think I knew. I thought it was how it works. I swear on everything. Please. She sent another message right after. The second one wasn't soft. Also you need to remove your freeze. They can't verify without that. I didn't reply. I forwarded both to the officer and to my advisor. My advisor sent back exactly what I expected, a single sentence that read, I will not be altering or retracting any reports, and then a second sentence I didn't expect, I am adding our general counsel to your HR thread. My father, on his end of the camera, exhaled through his nose like an old bull. Eat something, he said, and ended the call because he knows me well enough to know I wasn't going to. Noon at home turned into a street play. 2 men in button-downs that had never seen an iron showed up at my aunt's house and parked a scooter horizontal across her gate like punctuation. They didn't knock. They leaned. A neighbor called my grandmother. My grandmother called my dad. My dad walked over with a file folder under his arm like he was going to measure someone for curtains, and asked them for their receipts. They said they didn't do receipts. He said he didn't do cash conversations without a police officer present. They tried to chest bump him with words about honor and shame. He didn't blink. He told them to speak clearly into his phone, because the line was bad. The men decided the line was too good. They left a business card with a first name and an emoji printed like it was part of the address. My mother took a photo of it and then boiled it with a tea water like that would sterilize the memory. The cybercrime officer called while my dad was still in the lane. He said the shiny suit man had a WhatsApp backup full of templates. He said the words folder named IVs, and something in me wanted to laugh in a way that wasn't healthy. Then he asked for something I hadn't prepared for, a scan of my national ID and passport, the same ones I had already sent to my employer, because the folder had drafts of applications with my number on them. He said, very careful and formal, that one of the drafts looked like someone had tried to open a line of credit with my details last week and had been blocked at the KYC step. You did the freeze? He asked. I said yes. He said, good, and then, send me your statement. Today. He also said Jane and my uncle had been asked to come in at 10 the next morning and that if they didn't, he would make it easier for them to remember the way. At work, I let the guy take my laptop off my hands for 2 hours and pretended to be normal with a bowl of soup that tasted like the color beige. He brought it back with a new email filter and a list of domains that would send anything straight to quarantine. I added 3 more myself, synonyms of Harvard with an extra vowel, and my own name spelled with a wrong vowel the way Jane had once spelled it on a birthday cake. I left the office early because my brain kept producing static. On the walk home, my phone buzzed with a number from the news site that had emailed me. I let it ring out and sent them a sentence later saying I had nothing to add beyond the police case number. 5 minutes after that, my grandmother sent a message to the family group in the kind of crisp language she says for strangers. No one will host any meetings at their house, she wrote. No one will keep anyone's gold or cash. Any loans must be by bank with paper. My aunt put a crying face and then, unbelievably, a thumbs up. My uncle didn't reply. I should have known then something was wrong. Night where I am is morning where they are, and at 5 a.m. My dad texted me a photo of our front door, with the lock twisted. They came to our house by mistake, the message said first, and then, or not by mistake. The same men as yesterday, they think, or one's dressed the same, which sometimes is the same thing. They rattled the gate hard enough for a bolt to shave itself down and then sat on the curb like they were waiting for a bus. My dad called the officer. The officer showed up in a plain car, not with lights. He told them to leave and to present any paperwork at the station if they had some. They said they had a handshake. He said he had a pen. They left without drinking the tea my mother had somehow made anyway. While this was happening, Jane and my uncle walked past my dad at the station and didn't look at him. The officer later told my father, in that undertone men use when they're trying not to shame you, that Jane had admitted on paper to contacting agents, and that the agents had a ledger with payment entries against her initial. He also said that the shiny suit man had tried to call someone from his custody phone and that the number matched the emoji business card. He said, "These are not separate problems," and then, slowly, "and they are not only yours." My bag was half unpacked and I repacked it again, not because I was going anywhere, but because my body needed to move to keep from burning a hole through the sofa. I went to the store to buy a second lock for my apartment door and a folder with the kind of clip that makes you feel like you've organized something important even if all you've done is trap some paper. When I came back, there was an email waiting. Harvard. A real domain this time. My stomach did that elevator drop that has nothing to do with motion. It wasn't admissions. It was the international office. They had seen the viral post and the subsequent thread with corrected information from their student. They were circulating a memo to try to warn prospective applicants about scams in my region and wanted permission to use the fake letter, anonymized, as an example. They were also offering to send a one-page how to verify guide in our local language to the police if it would be useful. I stared at that for a long time. I thought about Jane spelling arts and sciences wrong. I thought about my dad in the lane holding his phone out like a shield. I wrote back yes. At almost the same time, my company's legal sent me a PDF on letterhead confirming that any third-party outreach about me should be directed to them and that I had not authorized anyone to speak, recommend, or act on my behalf. Keep this in your files, they said, and copy HR. 10 minutes later, my mom sent a photo of a handwritten and a note slid under their door in blue ink on a torn envelope. It said, in a kind of cursive that looks like it learned to write from a billboard, "Final installment today or we come inside," and then the emoji again. My dad took the note straight to the station. The officer took it between two fingers like it was contaminated and folded it into a plastic sleeve. He told my dad to install a camera at the gate by nightfall. He also said, "Do not be the hero," and looked at my father long enough that my father said, "I hear you." My aunt, perhaps realizing gravity works in both directions, sent a message to my mother privately that read, "We did not know about these men. We made mistake." Then a second message, "Jane is saying she will go to the university, the local one, to ask them to take her because she has credits now from the process." I didn't have the energy to respond to that with anything but an empty bubble. In the evening, my dad called me again and put me on speaker. The officer was at our dining table with a cup of tea he wasn't drinking and a notebook he was. He asked me to read my statement out loud, slowly, further recording. I did. He asked me to confirm that I had not given consent to use my CV, name, ID, or any publications in any application. I said I had not. He asked whether I wanted to press separate charges for impersonation. I said yes. He thanked me, very polite, because sometimes politeness is what keeps a system from collapsing. Then he asked my mother to sign something and told my father to keep his phone charged tonight. After he left, my grandmother did something I wouldn't have predicted in any version of my life. She sent a photo to the family group of a document on her table with 3 signatures already on hers, my dad's, and my mother's. It was a very simple, very plain family statement: no loans, no storage of property, no recommendations, no references without written consent, police first, not the lane, do not show up unannounced. Those who agree, sign, she wrote. Those who do not come. I could practically hear my aunt's gasp through the fiber optics. 3 minutes later, a cousin signed. Then an uncle. Then 2 aunts. The chat became a slow parade of names drawn in ballpoint pen under a single sentence that could have prevented a decade of nonsense. On my side of the world, rain started. I put my new lock on the door, because it was something I could do with my hands. I thought I was going to sleep. I didn't. At 1 in the morning my time, my phone lit up with a video call from my mother. She was whispering. "She's here," she said, and turned the camera to the entryway. Jane was on the mat, barefoot, hair unwashed, clutching a tote like it was a flotation device. She looked at the camera and didn't look away. "I need to stay," she said, voice hoarse. "Just tonight." They were at our stairs. My father took the phone and put it somewhere so all I could see was a slice of the ceiling and the curve of his knuckles. "We're taking her to the station," he said, not whispering. "She can wait there. It is safest." I could hear my mother breathe in to argue and then not argue. While they tied her sandals, and she cried without sound, my dad held the phone up again. "Door stays locked," he said, and I finally laughed then, a brief broken thing, because of course it does. They walked her out into the lane together, my mother's hand on her back like when she used to steer me across the road at 6, and I watched on a 4-inch screen as the officer's plain car slid into view. He opened the back door. Jane got in. My mother got in after her. My father locked the house behind them and put the key in his pocket. He showed me that too, just to be thorough. I went to bed and slept for exactly 45 minutes. When I woke up, there was a single new message on my phone. From the officer. "She is safe here tonight," it said. "Bring her again at 10. No emojis. No drama. Just a sentence that felt more like a boundary than any we've ever managed to set ourselves. I don't know what charges will stick, against whom, or how much money will ever be found. I do know that I will spend part of my lunch break signing my statement again in front of a notary and emailing it to 3 places in triplicate. I also know that if anyone emails my boss or my advisor about me again, they'll get legal boilerplate back so fast it will make their Gmail spin. If there's a happy ending here, it will be very boring paperwork. I'll take it.